Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of the Stargate Sci-Fi Cult Classics franchise documentary. Today's guest, I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only legendary Robert Davi, who played Commander Acastus Kolya on Stargate Atlantis, which ran from 2004 to 2009. 5 seasons, and Robert appeared in 6 episodes of that. And I suppose, Robert, when you got the opportunity to come and get involved in the sort of the Stargate sort of universe, to get involved in sort of Stargate Atlantis, had you heard of the original Stargate, the back of the movie back in 1995 with Kirk Douglas? Had you heard of the sort of series with Stargate SG-1 with sort of Richard Dean Anderson? So were you aware of what you were coming on board to?
Well, having been part of two previous MGM franchises, one being the Bond film and one being the Son of Pink Panther, the Stargate series was an MGM show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So I was absolutely aware of the Stargate shows and the sci-fi genre that it was, and then the subsequent spin-offs from that movie, that initial movie. And so I was aware of Stargate, and then Stargate Atlantis, of course, when that began.
And I suppose, Robert, did you see the original movie back in 1995 with sort of Kirk Douglas and James Spader? And what was your sort of take on that? I suppose that was the first, if you've seen it, it was the first introduction of Stargate in terms of which led to the spin-off of the two series.
Yeah. Very intriguing, because all of that, all the sci-fi stuff is very interesting, because I think it's preparing us for what the inevitable is. I mean, if you think about it, I think a very, how would you say it? A very, in Israel recently, I think the other day, a very decorated military personnel who's retired and has gotten many, many awards, came out today and said that there are aliens, that there is we have aliens, and there's a federation, and that they are bleeding information slowly so the public doesn't panic. And I think part of this whole thing is, when you see shows like Stargate or Star Trek or even Flash Gordon back in the day, it's preparing. And even the church came out recently, the Catholic Church came out several years ago saying it's not a sin to believe in aliens, meaning the extraterrestrial aliens. So I think, I think back on, and then going to Stargate, bring it to Stargate Atlantis and my participation with it, seeing how they, that portal, the portal of changing, I'm sure that there's portals that are around the globe, and they're able to, so anyway, I was intrigued by that series of films, especially the first one.
And what Robert was, you mentioned about Stargate being owned by MGM, and Stargate SG-1, were you ever sort of approaching your time to guest appear on that alongside, in guest appearance role alongside Michael Shanks, Richard Dean Anderson, Christopher Judge, or were you on set busy doing another project at the time, and was it just the timing was right for Stargate Atlantis?
Yeah, what year was that, Stargate 1? What was that year? Do you remember?
The Stargate Atlantis was 2004 to 2009, while the original Stargate SG-1 ran from 1997 until around 2004, 2005.
Yeah, well, I was very busy. I was doing my own TV show, which was on NBC, called Profiler. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, I've seen that, chap.
Profiler was the first of change the face of crime drama. And now you have, all these other shows that are really have been spawned by, and a style of filming on these criminal shows that have been spawned by Profiler, Criminal Minds, CSI, Without a Trace, the FBI stories now. I mean, they continue to use Profiler as the benchmark of of those shows. So I was very busy doing that show from 96 to 2000, and then being had a couple of films to do,
Okay.
and then I started. So I was not looking for anything like that until I think Stargate Atlantis came out, and I was, I think, ready to try some more television stuff.
Yeah, and you mentioned that in terms of Stargate Atlantis, and the character Commander Acastus Kolya, was that sort of did your talent agent show you the scripts from what the writers had in mind in terms of this character, and did you obviously reading through what they had on terms of paper for Kolya, obviously it appealed to you?
Well, I saw that, I read the first script, and they said this was a recurring character. I did not know where they were going to go with it. And I think they don't either sometimes, they may have a feeling and then they change their direction for whatever reasons. And but I liked the potential of Acastus Kolya. And they gave me freedom in terms of the creative team of Stargate Atlantis was very open, and they were adaptable, and we worked together, tailoring that character for myself, which they were very open to, and the cast was great. I always felt that there should be a surprise turn for Kolya, where he would then help. He would then help Shepard. I always thought that would be a very interesting little twist for the audience, later on down the line, and give him more of a, it would be, that's interesting for me to see a character that you have, you think is one thing, and then wait a second, he's not that, total nemesis. And I think you had a bit of that in the story. They touched on that.
And I suppose, Robert, in terms of coming on appearing on Stargate Atlantis, you were probably there with a sort of a young, sort of budding cast at the time, I suppose, trying to make inroads in the sort of acting business. While Stargate SG-1, probably Richard Dean Anderson, Michael Shanks, Christopher Judge, they were probably all established. Stargate Atlantis being a sort of spin-off, a new cast, probably trying to make their ways. Did you feel that it was still very much a real sophisticated, sort of well-run sort of show that had everything in line? And do you think the cast sort of blended well?
Yes, I didn't find any. I mean, at least the episodes I did, I found everyone from, of course, we filmed in Canada, and the crew there was top-notch. All the production designers were top-notch. The writing team, everyone involved, and the directing, keeping a vision of the show, to the cast members, that all seemed to fit very well. I mean, by the time, I guess, I don't know what episode and what year and I started, but from the first moment, that was a very good, at least what I experienced. There were no, I didn't know any of the behind the scenes, if there were any, frustrations.
I suppose, Robert, you appeared in 6 episodes, and you mentioned there about having a recurring sort of role on the sort of show. And in terms of that, you're a busy man, and you have sort of a whole load of projects going on, numerous scripts coming your way the sort of whole time. Was there ever times in probably Stargate Atlantis wanted you for more sort of episodes and you weren't able sort of to commit, or those sort of 6 episodes were they well sort of planned out events, or did you do block shooting? Did you do 1 or 2 episodes at a time when you're above in Vancouver?
No. They would say, hey, we're coming on to it, and I would get a call and I would go down to Vancouver and shoot. There was no overall plan that I knew of where the character was going. I did think that when they did kill off Kolya, there was a response to him in some way, and then they had brought him back into Shepard's mind.
Yeah,
I think there was some, and I always felt that they maybe killed him off a little too soon, and that was. But that's that's the actor saying, hey, you know what? It's nice to have that show, and the fan base was growing. So I liked having that fan base of Syfy growing. But then again, I had to do I did my I directed my first film called The Dukes. So I was not doing anything for 2 years. 2008, I started, well, actually 2005 or 6, I started really concentrating on the film, financing and putting it together. And then I was, released 2007, 2008, and then I was doing all the film festivals. So I was quiet for about 4 years, working on that. I don't know if you ever saw it, The Dukes.
I'll check it up, no doubt about it. I'll check it up.
Yeah, check it out. It's me, Chaz Palminteri, Miriam Margolyes, a brilliant English actress, and Peter Bogdanovich and Ilya Baskin, Russian actor.
And Robert, in terms of Stargate Atlantis, in terms of the character Kolya, he was sort of a what do you call him? A sort of a commander and sort of a chief of the sort of Jedi army, under the sort of control of Colomini's sort of character, who later deceased. But he was sort of one of those sort of rogue sort of generals that you'd see in terms of South America, in terms of Venezuela, Ecuador, those sort of rogue generals that try and overthrow a government, try a coup sort of thing. And sort of, he reminded me of an old type sort of, I wouldn't say a fascist dictator, but a sort of dictator on the lines of a Mussolini or a Castro.
Really? That's how you. That's your feedback on Acastus Kolya.
Hello there.
It just in a resemblance in terms of Kolya, in terms of he was very determined and believed in what he was doing, but he almost felt that the power, he wanted the power in his hands in terms of making those decisions himself.
Yeah, I didn't see him much as that. I didn't, you know what I mean? It was just his own entity. I didn't think of him as a dictator as much as perhaps a renegade. Yeah. Perhaps more like a Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now, that before he really went, so something more to that effect.
Yeah, and I suppose the one thing about Kolya was that he was determined in his actions. He believed in sort of his actions, but he would go the extra mile to sort of to secure what he wanted. And in terms of his interrogation techniques, there's the great scenes there, I think, it's where you captured Shepard with the rate and all that, and where he's on the brink of death, but you're willing to still see him go that extra mile to get the information that you sort of needed in terms of being sort of successful. So he was a man that would let no obstacles stand in his way to get what he wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, that's that. You justify the means, right? Depending on what side of the fence you're on. I never saw him as I saw him as a leader, not as a bad guy. When I play a character, I don't comment on that character. I just justify. And when you have that justification, then when you can look at it, from objectively, then you say, oh, okay, he's a bad guy. But I don't really go into it going, I don't analyze a character as with his morality, because you have to justify that, even if he's insane or power hungry. You know what I mean? You're not objectifying the character. You're playing it. You're becoming it.
Yeah, and in terms of when you heard that your character was on his sort of final days, and they showed you the way Kolya would go out in terms of your death scene, were you happy with the type of no one's ever happy to be killed off in a series, but in the way Kolya sort of met his demise, was that those scenes, would you have liked them to be scripted or away, or were you happy with Kolya's sort of death scene? If you had no choice in terms of him being sort of meeting his demise, do you think they did a good job in it?
I haven't seen it in a while or analyzed it like that. So I refresh my memory. I know, what is it, Shepard and I had a shootout?
Yeah, a duel, a drawing of the sort of guns and all.
Yeah, like an old Western kind of thing. And Richard Klein was in that episode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was, the old quick draw, the old Western standoff. I mean, you
And
have to service,
yeah.
Shepard, of course, So Shepard has to be, but I don't if I don't remember exactly. There may have been a moment or two we worked on in the script or something, but I don't remember.
No problem.
Yeah, yeah.
And I suppose, Robert, the last question before I let you go, and probably the hardest question that I'm going to ask you now, is probably the one that I finish off all these interviews. If someone put your character, let's say Commander Acastus Kolya, into a sort of Stargate encyclopedia, a dictionary as such, and they left 2 blank sentences underneath his name, and they asked you, Robert Davi, having portrayed the role of Acastus Kolya, to write those 2 sentences to sum him up, what would you like those 2 sentences to read?
He never got his just.
Okay.
No, I think he met an too early demise.
Okay.
And Acastus Kolya met too early a demise, and he should, at a certain point, started to team up with Shepard and their team. I would have liked to see him make a switch like that.
Yeah. On that note, Robert, a pleasure talking to you this evening. A pleasure as always. It's been too long. And thanks for taking your time this evening to talk about your role in Stargate Atlantis, playing the role of Commander Acastus Kolya. 6 episodes, really a staunch adversary for Stargate Atlantis during your time on the show. Pleasure speaking to you this evening. And Robert, we wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and no doubt a busy 2021 for you.
Well, thank you so much, Jim, and all the Stargate Atlantis and Stargate fans out there. It was a pleasure playing Acastus Kolya, and I thought the whole introduction with the storm and everything else, all those great effects. We were wet for days, and that was just incredible. And so I had a lot of fun doing it. And like I said, I felt that Kolya met his demise too early, and I would have liked to have him find a way to then team with, just look at this, how the Allied, fought the Nazis, right?
Yeah.
They band together, people that may not even Russia, you know what I mean, at that time, they say. So I would have liked to have seen something like that go against a different force, as Kolya's, and needing his skills or his brutality. So that's, but anyway, thank you so much, Jim. And it's good to see you again or talk to you again.
Cheers, Robert. Take care, bud.
All right, my brother. Bye.